Thank you all for being here, both the media side and our community partners. All set?
Switching out. Sorry.
I view this as a very important issue. I worked on this statement for the last 3.5 days, off and on, and hopefully it meets the mission.
Okay.
Tell me when you're ready.
When you're ready.
Okay, cool. As a civil rights activist of decades, I felt recently that I could no longer not comment on the constant and vicious national and local attacks on the term diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can we say that? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what that term represents to blacks and other marginalized people, and what it means for the nation. From my childhood growing up down the street in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, I was always taught in my civics and social studies classes that this nation stood for equality and equal opportunity for all of its citizens, regardless of race, creed, color, ethnicity, religion, or status in life. The fact is, this nation has never accomplished that great goal, and with the current political climate, probably never will, at least in the foreseeable future. This reality, to many of us, is sad, a sad reality, unsettling, troubling, and in spirit, un-American. The term diversity, equity, and inclusion has been made a boogeyman under the current national administration and echoed in recent legislation introduced into the legislative halls of Pennsylvania to limit diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in public universities and government agencies, arguing that they promote so-called reverse discrimination or political bias. Give me a break. This is why those of us who have assembled this morning are crying out in our own ways about the continued onslaught of this bedrock principle of America of seeking equal opportunity for all, and why we seek the end to that onslaught both locally and nationally. Today we ask that leaders of corporations, companies, universities, colleges, and major nonprofits to not turn their back on what many of you have put into place, implemented, and supported over the years, and particularly following the death of George Floyd, which occurred on May 25th, 2020 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which brought about, though apparently very temporarily, a new level of consciousness in this country about ongoing disparities between black and white people in this country. For a moment, civil and human rights activists and regular citizens felt we had new friends and new partners in our multi-decade efforts to find true equality, fairness, and opportunity throughout this nation. Apparently, there are those who now feel that these goals have been met within a mere 4+ years. Obviously, such an interpretation of history would be foolish. Disparities, and in some cases serious disparities, for blacks and other marginalized people in this country remain a reality, not a myth. This is not the time. This is not the time to move away from these programs, policies, and initiatives that have continued to narrow the gaps of equality and opportunity over the years. We're asking for these leaders, both locally and nationally, to not be intimidated by anyone, regardless of their position, to dissuade these leaders from what they know in their hearts to be right, to show their humanity, to show their absolute commitment to fairness and equal opportunity, and to the ever-existing moral case to accomplish meaningful and effective efforts to help this city, this Commonwealth, and this nation to meet its oft-stated commitment to making the United States of America what it should be for all of its citizens. In the Black Political Empowerment Project's Corporate Equity Inclusion Roundtable SCORE, Strategies for Creating Opportunities Through Retention and Engagement Playbook, formerly the B-PEP Ceir Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Playbook, we state now that how the goal of leveling the playbook and the play field has not at all been met in the Pittsburgh region. On June 10th, 2010, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reported that the Pittsburgh region was ranked dead last on indicators of racial and economic parity in comparison to 39 other regions in the country with regard to the black working poor and African American children. Also, according to the Pittsburgh Regional Workforce Diversity Indicators Report of 2015, African Americans in Pittsburgh were reported to earn lower salaries than whites in every sector of work. We also state in our playbook that disparities have not just been with the poorer sections of our population. According to a 2020 report by the National Association of Law Placement, minorities accounted for 10.23% of law firm partners and 26.48% of law firm associates nationwide. However, in Pittsburgh, minorities accounted for only 2.88% of the 313 partners and 10.81% of law firm associates based on information submitted by local law firms. It's important to note also that Pittsburgh had the lowest percentage of minority partners of the 36 cities represented in the study. Locally, the poverty rate for the black population has been more than twice of the white population in the city of Pittsburgh, and at the time of our report, only 47% of black men were employed in Pittsburgh, while 85% of comparable cities had higher black employment rates than the city of Pittsburgh. To bring this troubling picture up to date, in the Pittsburgh Courier article dated, the new Pittsburgh Courier article dated February 18th and 19th to 25th, 2025 edition, according to apartmentlist.com, a website known for connecting people with apartments across the country, partnering with its Black Employee Resource Group, Pittsburgh was tied for dead last with Albany, New York, out of 76 ranked cities. The article mentions, quote, some of the younger black professionals are beginning to wonder if being educated and accomplished is enough to participate in a well-balanced life in Pittsburgh. It further states Pittsburgh needs a strategic plan on how they will keep, restore, and invest in black communities and experiences. On a national scene, our B-PEP Ceir playbook states that the U.S. is experiencing the largest wealth gap in the last quarter century. We are not getting closer. We're getting further away. According to the 2019 survey of consumer finances by the Federal Reserve Board, white families have 8 times the wealth of African American families, 5 times the wealth of Hispanic families. Again, this is not the time to cease and desist any efforts, any programs aimed at leveling the playing field. Ricardo Nazario, EDD, the immediate past president of Appalachian Studies Association from 2023 to 2025, remarks on the depth and the wide-ranging impact the attacks on DEI have on the entire nation. Quote, the anti-DEI movement is a regressive force attacking civil rights, gender equality, disability protections, rural communities, and democracy itself. Under the guise of fairness, it undermines progress, disrupts government programs that support small farmers, and seeks to erase protections for marginalized groups. I'm exposing the real agenda, he states. This movement is consolidating power for the privileged. Though we have expressed, thus far, the moral case and the historical case based on the concepts that this nation stands for, would support the need for continuing the programs and initiatives that promote fairness and opportunity. There is indeed, however, a business case for the same, shared in our B-PEP CIR strategies for creating opportunities through retention and engagement, the SCORE, S-C-O-R-E playbook. Every $1 spent with a certified minority business enterprise in Pittsburgh yields a 1.5 impact in the community. 76% of surveyed employees and job seekers indicated that a diverse workforce, not a white workforce, a diverse workforce, is an important factor when evaluating companies and job offers. In other words, there are thousands of people in Pittsburgh and millions across the nation who have no desire to work in an all-white environment. And that includes sensitive white people. 63% believe that their company should be doing more to increase diversity among its workforce. By this year of 2025, 75% of the global workforce will be made up of millennials, 74% of whom believe inclusion leads to more innovation. Since 2000, black buying power has grown by 114% to $2 trillion. Inclusive companies have a 2.3% higher cash flow per employee. What more of a business case? Companies with gender diverse executive teams are 27% more likely to have better financial outcomes than their peers. Women make a difference. Businesses with more diverse management teams have 19% higher revenues due to innovation. Generating higher profits is 43% more likely among organizations with the most ethnically diverse boards. The rolling back of what in recent years has been referred to as diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and programs has very negative and has significant implications on nonprofit civil rights work, affecting marginalized communities, advocacy efforts, and systematic progress toward equality. The impact of this rollback includes increased barriers to equity and access, reduced opportunities for underrepresented groups in hiring and leadership roles, increased racial, gender, and economic disparities in access to resources. And there is obviously more incredible difficulty in addressing historically and systematic discrimination. Political and social pushback against programs aimed at diversity and inclusion lead to increased hostility toward organizations promoting racial and gender equity. To counteract this rather radical, unnecessary, and indeed dangerous attack on programs aimed at merely leveling the playing field, there have been discussions locally and nationally on how to best do this. The direction that seems to be considered rather widely is for nonprofits to simply reframe their missions to align with changing political climate. This reframing can help maintain support, can help retain support for these important initiatives, and would help keep the focus on the key and core principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The hope is that the shift in language, the shift in language will emphasize such themes as economic empowerment, equal opportunity, workforce readiness. In our B-PEP CER strategies for creating opportunities through retention and engagement, the SCORE playbook, we recently altered the language in the playbook. But the strategies, the action steps, and principles all remain in place. But the words diversity, equity, and inclusion have been eliminated. You ask, why do we do that? We do not want to give an employer a weak reason to not even consider what we know to be an excellent plan and playbook for achieving the results we seek. A plan that has been adopted and implemented by the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Pittsburgh Steelers, University of Pittsburgh, Kyean University, and others. We're asking that local companies, corporations, universities, colleges, and major nonprofits do something similar if they feel it necessary to allow them to continue their actions to support opening up their employment opportunities, to create a more diverse workforce, and to support diversity in the assignment of contracts for various services and products. We urge all local and national employers to simply do the right thing. In terms of what must be done, certainly major employers know the goal of equality has never been achieved and never will be without actively supporting and expanding initiatives and programs aimed at meeting the objectives of equity and equality. By doing so, these employers can be bold champions in strongly pushing back on this new effort to erroneously imply and or state that these programs to level the playing field are no longer necessary. To do otherwise would undermine the much needed corporate efforts to help America live up to its creed, to be a nation where all are welcome, where all are given a true and meaningful opportunity to succeed and to achieve at their highest level possible. That is the position paper of the Black Political Empowerment Project and the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. We will now hear from the President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, Carlos Carter.
Thank you, Tim. Well, Tim said it all. I can't add to that, but what I can add is that, the National Urban League and our Urban League is very committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's important that we say those words. A lot of times people take the acronym DEI and demonize it. And let's say what diversity, equity, inclusion is. It is about creating access, right? The equity part is access, right? And it really is that there are, everything is not level, right? And so when people make statements, administration, that it's about merit, that's insulting. Our people have worked for merit. If it were true that merit-based country, then Black people would have a lot of wealth, right? And diversity and inclusion isn't just about Black, it's Black and brown, it's women, it's LGBTQ+, it's people with disabilities. It's really about differences, and diversity is about having difference. And America is better when we do have differences. And then inclusion is making people respected, right? I'm not gaslighting people saying that realities don't exist, but the data says differently about inequities. It's there, right? And so if it is discriminatory, then why are Black and brown people still at the bottom? And so there is no credible evidence that these programs are discriminating against anyone. It's just not true. And it's not about quotas and set-asides. That is not legal, right? It's about having goals and measuring, moving towards a more diverse country where everybody has opportunity. And National Urban League is not taking a sit down, so we have filed a lawsuit, I think on the February 19th, saying that these orders, executive orders, hurt organizations, don't allow them to fulfill their mission, and it really further marginalizes different populations. And I had the pleasure on this Sunday of marching on the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, which basically, for those who don't know, is about folks were marching for voters' rights, because my grandparents, they could not vote because they were Black. And so the blood people shed, right? They were beaten bloody while they were praying. They didn't even get across the bridge, right? And that just reminds me of the importance of this work, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion is basically simply really kind of filling the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is about equal opportunity for all. And so it's a way to intentionally do that, because what you don't measure, you do what you measure. But I also want to say that, it is good for business, as Tim mentioned. Businesses that are more diverse are more profitable, they're more successful. And so if one doesn't want to do it for the moral reasons, because it's the right thing to do it for the business case. I actually wrote an op-ed in a Post-Gazette where I kind of laid that case out pretty clearly about a month ago. But it's good for America, it's good for business, and inequity still exists, so we have to do something. And so my message to people here in Pittsburgh is to speak up. My message to the corporate people here is don't cower. don't follow lies. And I know there's been smear tactics against our national leader meets with a lot of CEOs, et cetera. So there's been smear tactics and lies to bully people into not doing what's right. Do what's right. Again, if you can't do it morally, don't have the courage to do that, do it because you want your business to thrive. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. That's the president of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, Carlos Conner. Now we're going to bring forward a new partner who's working with us through B-PEP and the Corporate Equity Inclusion Roundtable, our survey, Black Retention Survey, Black Satisfaction Retention Survey at the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work, Center on Race and Social Problems. She felt it necessary to be with us today on this question of the attack, the vicious attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Kyean Conner, University of Pittsburgh.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here to talk today. Some of the most critical attacks and some of the largest backlash on diversity, equity, and inclusion really have happened within the context of higher education. And of course, within that context, we are talking about the policies and practices and initiatives that have been designed to ensure that all members of the academic and the sort of academic community, students, faculty, staff, but of all races, all ages, all genders, all nationalities, all religions, all abilities, have equal opportunities to access for success. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, these are not just buzzwords. These are foundational principles, values that we stand on that ensure that our educational institutions are rich and diverse. That is part of the foundation that we should be standing on as Americans, right? That we embrace diversity, that we recognize and value our differences, that we understand that in the context of higher education, that it is this diversity that brings us together, where we can share our differences of opinions, where we can talk about different values, the way that we were raised, and how that brings us together to create complex and very effective solutions to some of our most critical problems in society. Critics have argued that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are unnecessary and harmful, claiming that they promote division or that they lower standards, and recently, as you've heard, have also identified them as being discriminatory. And these arguments are wrong. This is, false narratives. This is alternative facts. This is not true, and these statements completely fail to recognize the profound benefits that diversity, equity, and inclusion has had in society, but in particular today I want to talk about higher education. But let's talk about these misconceptions, because we can't just throw around falsehoods without countering them with the accurate truths. DEI initiatives do not lower standards. This is not the case. DEI programs, again, were designed to ensure that all people have equal opportunity to have access to success. It is about dissolving some of the systemic barriers that have prevented certain groups from being able to have that access in the first place. So by dissolving those barriers, by providing support, we lay a foundation where merit can shine. That is the entire point of DEI. This is the opposite of discrimination. DEI is here to mitigate discrimination, and we need to be clear about that fact. Some say that DEI initiatives promote division. That couldn't be more far from the truth. DEI programs are about creating belonging, unity, bringing groups of people together. By embracing diversity and promoting inclusion, we create environments where individuals from different backgrounds can learn from one another, share with one another, and collaborate effectively. This not only enriches the educational experience, but also prepares our students to thrive in an ever-growing diverse environment. Again, DEI does not create division, but the narratives that DEI is discriminatory is creating division, and that needs to stop. There is a belief that DEI programs are unnecessary because we live in a post-racial society, and as you've already heard, that is completely false. If we just look at the higher education context, sure, we have seen higher numbers of Black and Latino Hispanic undergraduate students. But if we look at the overall numbers, they are still grossly underrepresented in traditional universities and compared to their white and Asian counterparts. Students of color end up having to take out more loans in order to get through college, creating additional economic challenges for them and higher rates of dropout. We know that students with disabilities still have difficulty accessing content. Universal design is starting, but it's still not all the way through. So we have students who deserve to be on campus who still don't have full access to content. That is not okay. That has to stop. And we're still seeing disparities even amongst faculty. Even despite all of the programs, 70% of faculty in the United States are white, and less than 7% are black. That is a problem, and these disparities exist and persist even with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So the gaps that we've been working so hard to narrow are going to continue to widen and worsen in the absence of DEI programs. Again, these programs were put into place to address disparities, and it's very important to say loudly that providing additional opportunities to some does not limit opportunities for others. The attacks on DEI in higher education are misguided and are detrimental to the progress that we have made towards creating inclusive and equitable environments. As members of the Pittsburgh community, it is essential that we address these attacks head on, that we counter this misinformation with facts, and reaffirm our commitment to creating inclusive and equitable environments in higher education, and we need to do it today. Thank you.
We're going to bring up Emily Francis from the Forbes Fund and the Greater Pittsburgh
Nonprofit partnership.
Nonprofit Partnership.
I appreciate being invited this morning. So in my career, we operate at the intersection of multiple sectors, and I hope today to communicate the importance of this call to action, not only by individuals, not only by companies, not only by universities, not only by community groups, but across all sectors, because working at the intersection of nonprofit, corporate, small business, government, small government, university, and community development organizations has made it so clear that diversity is an asset. Having diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of position, diversity of agenda is something that makes decisions stronger, and as it has been stated, it makes business sense. When we think about smart businesses, we know that diversifying revenue streams and diversifying investments is a good business practice. So when it comes to diversity of thought, diversity of action, and how we approach things differently, it does not make sense that that's being called into question as a strength. And so looking at the call to action to continue the work that we're doing to make the playing field more level, this cannot be something that is owned by an individual group or an organization. And it is important for everyone, because as has been stated, when one group wins, we all win. And so when we are evening the playing field and looking out for individuals who are communities of color, individuals with disabilities, women, queer folks, everybody is stronger when we come together. And so this is invitation. It is not a call out, but a call in to participate and to continue doing this work, because it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a special quote that Celeste Taylor, who's been a recent months special consultant to the Black Political Empowerment Project, and helped work on our great vision session we had a couple weeks ago, and also assisted with me in the preparation of this statement today. She has a special quote to share. Our former vice chair of B-PEP.
Thank you. Bayard Rustin, March 17th, 1912 through August 24th, 1987. Why am I honoring him today? Not just because it's his birthday, but for me, he has been an inspiration. As a Black Quaker woman in Pennsylvania, there were few people in history that I could really see who had the courage and resilience and also be the architect of some great marches. So when we have a call to action, I think it's important to include our faith communities. Absolutely. And this is his quote: "When an individual is protesting society's refusal to acknowledge his dignity as a human being, his very act of protest confers dignity on them. And that's what a lot of this is about, the inherent dignity of all human beings. So a call to action can be this press conference, it can be marching in the street, it can be writing your legislators, I've done it all. But we have to do something. And it's a privilege and honor to be here with this diverse group of folks who have been committed and who have accepted the call to action. They have accepted the call to action many, many times. But this is just so important, and I'm so glad that the media has covered such an important press conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, you have received them, Carlos, come back up. I thought you were put out of office.
They see my face. Not yet.
But we thank all of our partners for being with us today. We thank the media for being with us. What a very sensitive time in America. And I hope America meets the moment. I hope America meets the moment to be who America has always said it was, or would be, or will be. Thank you all.
Tim, a couple
Yes,
of
sir.
questions. Who is a member? Do you have any corporate members on the Ceir Roundtable?
We work with corporations, we meet with them. We don't have corporate people on our working group. We periodically meet with different corporations and companies. And as I said in the statement, February 28, 2023, we had a very powerful press conference at Aquashore Stadium where all three of our major sports teams committed to, they've already began at that time to implement the corporate equity playbook. Matter of fact, Art Rooney called it one of the most well done plans of its kind that he had ever seen, and is sending it across the nation to all of the sports teams. And that's why also we have a national model which is extremely similar to the local model. But we will be dealing with the language in that because we have to deal with reality. I'm not happy about this, but we have to deal with reality. And across the country, there will be owners who may not be as supportive as an Art Rooney, and as soon as they see diversity, equity, and inclusion, they throw the book away. So we have relanguaged, if I may say that, but it's exactly the same strategies. We're not eliminating our strategies because they're working.
So the next question is twofold. With your playbook, how do you get the corporate community to embrace the ideals of Ceir? What is your plan for that? And you mentioned about lawmakers, you employ them not to cower and not be intimidated.
Absolutely, to not be intimidated.
What is there? So it's a twofold question. What is your plan to get the corporate community to accept the ideals of Ceir? And is there a plan to pressure lawmakers to stand up against the attackers of DEI?
That's a good two-part question. We have a commitment from Allegheny Conference to meet with us very, very soon, possibly this week, or at least by next, where they have agreed to help market our document. But we also know, since that commitment was made, that some things have changed in the last 8 weeks. So we are meeting, and hopefully we will come out of that session with a joint strategy that will be positive and progressive and will help move the document into action. So we are awaiting that conversation. It's an important conversation, and it will have some significance in how we move this playbook ahead. That's why we took the initiative. No one told us to do this. We decided to change the language just enough. We're dealing with opportunity, engagement, and retention. Opportunity, engagement, and retention. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not mentioned in the document, but the strategies which all three of these sports teams have said it was a brilliant document, and they said it's easy to use. We have a metric system in the back that they can use to see what progress they've made. There's a timetable that people can say, this strategy we can start now, or we're already doing. We can do this in 3 months, we can do this in 6 months, 9 months, whatever. The whole plan is laid out, and we've been told it's very workable, very usable, and accessible.
And apparently you have not been pleased with the reaction of lawmakers in the state or in Washington. What is your plan to even send a message to reach those individuals?
First thing is to take medication. And so to calm ourselves, because I'll be honest with you, I've never seen an attack on civil rights and human rights. And some, it looks like some folks want to put us back in the 50s. I'll be honest with you. Years ago, I felt the issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, we didn't call it that, but moving us into equality and equal opportunity, we had actually made progress in recent decades. And I thought we were on a precipice of not absolute success, but we could see there's a possibility that we may get, as Reverend Dr. King would say, to the promised land.
Yes.
The promised land has been not yet destroyed, but contaminated with words that are disgraceful, divisive, and certainly not helpful to bring this country together. For people to remember, we are supposedly a melting pot. Some folks want to throw us out of the pot, and that is not acceptable.
But what is your directive to legislators? That's the question.
Well, the second part is, we can, and I'm glad you asked that question, you gave us an assignment. I think we should send a statement that I just spent the last 3 or 4 days on. To every legislator in Pennsylvania, we can have your statement, whatever, all right? And we can send them out.
I want to interject
Go
quickly.
ahead, go.
So the National Urban, actually, we created the Demand Diversity Roundtable, which represents people from all groups, from Jewish to every group represented, and people represent 100 million people. And so we created this, and so we're working with our members of Congress on that. And so people don't realize that National Urban is a big force. I always say we're like the wind. You can't see us, but you'll feel us, especially in terms of it comes to policy. There's a lot going on. We work closely with the White House. And so we are standing up. In addition to lawsuit, we did create that group. And it's part of our 3D strategy, which is basically defend democracy, demand diversity, inclusion, and to defeat poverty. And so in terms of diverse workforce, the urban, we've been doing this in Pittsburgh 107 years and nationally since 1910. And so we help 70% Black people, we help all people, right? In our 3 family support centers, we help Afghani refugees, 100 or so of them. So we help everybody, but our focus is on Black community. And so in terms of what this administration wants, we're already helping everybody, right? But we know there's we need to double down on helping Black and brown communities because the inequities are so gross. And so that's what we're doing. And so we have work to do here locally as well. Like I said, I just wrote the op-ed. I'm about to do another one. But like there's some organizing that we need to do here further to really hold the corporate community accountable. And I think the Urban League, since we do have a lot of corporate sponsors, like we're having our gala this Friday, we have a lot of big corporate players that we interact with. So I think we're good to be that intermediary. So maybe I see how I can better support Tim with that. But they must be held accountable, and they must not cower. Because as I said, in 2045, it's going to be predominantly Black and brown. So if we don't have this workforce where it needs to be, America's going to suffer no matter what your politics, no matter your thought. And so people understand the power of green. And so, like I said, if you don't want to do it for the moral case, do it for the financial case. And we cannot thrive. And we must respect the $4 trillion buying power of the diverse community that fuels corporate America. And like Target and others are about to see, there's going to be a reckoning coming. There was a reckoning with George Floyd that people have backed out on their promises to commit to. But there's going to be another reckoning when people really realize what's going on and people realize their power. I love what Ellis Walker said, is that the quickest way we give our power is believing that we don't have any, but we have power. If we speak up, we organize, and realize that, right? We do have power. And so corporate America better watch out.
Mike, there you go. Anybody else?
Dr. Conner.
Yes.
I have it for Dr. Conner. So for University of Pittsburgh, there are kids now that are literally freaking out about scholarships that are being pulled that are geared towards Black and brown students. what is the university doing to secure that, and or if they are, and what is the university doing to inform kids who may be an influx, because there are a lot of Black and brown students that get scholarship money.
That's a really great question. So I do want to say one thing is that I am not here as a representative of the University of Pittsburgh. That's very important for me to say. And so I don't know what some of the decisions are that the leaders of the university are doing. I can speak to what we're doing in the School of Social Work and what we're doing at the Center on Race and Social Problems, which is trying to really work with our students to find strategies to support them right now. There's a lot of unknowns. I think that's really the biggest challenge with all of this. Nothing has actually been taken away. And so I think one of the points that's really critical that I've been trying to make and sort of pleading with universities is to not engage in preemptive obedience. Nothing yet has been taken away. But people are making decisions out of fear. The university is scared. They don't know what's going to happen, so they're running risk models. They're trying to figure out, do not engage in preemptive obedience. These are not laws. These are executive orders over here in Washington. They're not, we have no laws demanding us to shut down anything right now. And so we're trying to be strategic. We're trying, you talked about the language. We're doing everything that we can to figure out where are there places where a word is just a word and it's less important than the content behind that. That's right. We are meeting with students on a daily basis, trying to reduce anxieties, trying to find alternative solutions. But the truth is, at least right now, these things, some of the things that have been put out into the media about things that have stopped or shut down aren't actually true. The challenge is because we don't know what's going to happen, the lack of clarity, the uncertainty, which by the way is a plan, that was intentional, to make everyone so worried and so unsure about the future that we were running around in so many different directions that we didn't know what to fight first. So we have to stay cool-headed and to stay focused and look at the facts. And the facts are our students are okay. Nothing has been taken away just yet. And we will do everything that we can to protect our student body today and for the future.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Was there a law for them to get rid of all them federal workers? How did that happen?
So that's not at the university level.
No, but I'm just throwing that out there. Was there a law for that?
No. There's a lot of not lawful things happening right now.
And then he's making everybody mad. The Canadians are best neighbors. It's crazy.
But the reality is that there are organizations that are losing funding, or funding has been frozen. That is a reality that people are facing. Like, for example, we had a $1.2 million grant that we were working with Pitt, actually. It was part of a $22 million grant that because we do a lot at tech and in Urban League and really making sure more Black and brown people and women are in tech. And so I put on my pipeline 0% chance, right? And so that's one thing, but that's significant. I mean, our operations are still strong, but in terms of that opportunity to have a broader reach with diversifying tech, and so, but it is a reality. And yes, we can't, just balk in fear, but there are true concerns. But I think, just like the brain, when you're truly operating in fear, the amygdala hijacks the neocortex, which is the reasoning part of the brain. And so we're in a fight, flight, freeze, or freeze mode. So we have to be careful about that. We need to take a breath and be mindful so that we can strategize. And just like I said, taking it back to Selma, people were beaten, people were killed, but people still marched on, right? They realized that there's something bigger than us. So, you can kill a person, but you can't kill a movement. And so people can strike down DNF, but the whole concept of justice is something that nobody can strike down, right? That anyone that's here would die for it, right? And so you can't kill a movement. This is a movement, and people will not sit still. Like I said, our lawsuit at the National Urban League is a start convening and things we're going to do here in Pittsburgh. But we will not sit here. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're not going to stop here.
I did want to follow up to what Sheldon asked. I think it's so important that just ordinary people are engaged in voicing their opposition to any elected official that supports the rollback of DEI. As a non-partisan organization, it doesn't mean that we can't educate the community and expose those that are not doing things in our best interests. One of the most important things we do at B-PEP is that we encourage everyone to vote in each and every election. And so the power of the vote is a necessary tool to bring about the kind of changes that we want, because we know what happens when we don't vote, or we vote in so few numbers.
Say that again. Say that again.
So using the power of the pen, the power of the protest, the thing that I'm so concerned about is that everyone is so scared. And it's dim that spirit of people going out and demanding to be treated fairly.
That's right.
And so this call to action here, to me, is just got me just re-energized
Fired up.
and passionate, and that we can appeal to all sectors.
We
to
can't
not
let the couch
just-
win. We
that's
can't
right.
let the couch win, right?
That's
36%
right.
of
Stand up.
36% of people, I think, didn't vote in the recent election. We can't let the couch win. We have to let our voices be counted. Your voice is your vote, and your vote is your power. And so apathy is not a strategy for change.
On Tuesday, I believe it's April 27th, we're holding the VIP that B-PEP and the League of Women Voters, YWCA were helpful in initiating. It's a partnership of about 30 organizations. We're having a big forum at the mayoral forum, all 4 candidates, Republicans and Democrats, at Point Park University in the Playhouse. And
Okay.
it'll be at 5:30, and all 4 candidates will be there, so we encourage. And our mission as BPEP is that we vote in each and every election. That is not to be a statement that sounds good. It needs to be good.
That's right.
If all the black people, brown people, gay people, people with disabilities, young people, if we all voted in each and every election, we could put anybody in office, we could take anybody out. And we need to look at it that way, like really that way, particularly what's going on in this nation right now. We have to protect ourselves. Nobody else is going to do it for us. And to Sheldon's point, I think one of the things we could do this week is to send a statement out in the joint statements to every university president or chancellor in this area, because we have quite a few. And they need to sit and look at this, because if they read it, unless they're cold-hearted, they can't disagree with what we've seen today. Am I right?
Right. And they have to understand how they're going to keep their lights on too, right? The reality is, how do you stop something if you stop feeding it? And so when grants and monies are no matter what they believe, that's a reality, and so we must address that, right?
It's unlawful. You can't, you gotta stop. the
Thank you all very
unlawful
much.
things you're doing
Thank
to
you.
us.
Sheldon, were you going to say
If it's
something?
unlawful,
Or
we
were you
try to
just looking
address
that
it.
way?
I think.
No, I was talking.
Okay, thank you. So, as soon as Rico can get this to us, Deb Stillergross, who is our website coordinator for Corporate Equity Inclusion Roundtable, it will be going up on our website. The importance of having this recorded, he's recording the whole thing, is, I know we took some time, but time got us here. And the absence of action of millions of people in this country got us here. Let's be honest. So this will be an important, it will stay up on our website all year, because people need to hear this story, get it, and do what they can do.
And the message of we shall overcome. I think we should end with
Yes,
that.
we
We
shall.
shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
That's from being a Selma, right?
All right.